a few others. We continue in the fourth letter. This letter is, right now we're speaking about two forms, two parts of the heart, two basic ideas of the heart. There's the external part of the heart that we can reach through our minds, that we can develop through our minds, that we can, through an understanding, an awareness of the divine, of God, the greatness of God, our relationship with God, that can feed the heart. That can feed the heart. But then there's the deepest part of the heart, the core of the heart. We call it pnimius halev, the inwardness of the heart. That's not so simple to touch. That is very deep within us. Actually, it is the defining, the definition of the Jewish soul that comes from Chokhmah. Chokhmah, the power of what? It is a power, but yet a nullified power. Of what? Like, like, what is it? Beyond. It is the beginning of intelligence, but beyond intelligence. It is the receptacle of the Ein Sof, of the limitlessness of God. And that's what defines the soul. That's what defines the Jewishness. And here we're not speaking about the defining of the Jewishness as we did in chapter 19, for example, the first part of Tanya, on which we elaborated yesterday about. Here the point is, how do you touch that part of your heart, which is the core, which is the essence of your soul, that's reflected in that inwardness of the heart? How do you get there? Can we get there? So the Alter Rebbe says that even though this is the defining of defining the Jewish soul, but not every person merits that they can actually reach that, to reveal that in day-to-day living. As we mentioned yesterday in chapter 19, the Alter Rebbe says that that's what comes to the fore when a Jew is put to the test of their faith. In other words, accepting another religion or dying. And how many thousands upon thousands of Jews gave up their lives in order not to accept another faith. And we're not talking about Jews that did it because they felt, oh, I'm going to get a greater Garden of Eden because of this. I'm going to get, eternal heaven. No, they didn't do it because of that. They didn't do it for any reason. They did it just because that was the core essence of their soul that was being revealed. It was beyond logic. Because the Chachma of the soul is beyond logic. It transcends it. So the question is, okay, we have this part of our soul within us. How do we reveal it? So the Alter Rebbe says, well, it's, that's where we're going today, but not everybody merits to reveal that. I would suggest probably very few of us. And, well, let's see what the Alter Rebbe says here. He says, because the fact is, as it's in a state of exile, in captivity, which correlates with the Shekhinah, the divine presence, that the divine presence of God is also in captivity, also in exile. Right? So that Shekhinah, that's the part of my soul, that is the spark of divinity that's in my divine soul. And which is that spark of God, which is then, therefore, the Shekhinah itself, likewise in exile. And this is what our sages said in the Talmud, when the Jewish people went into exile of Babylon, the first exile of the Babylonian exile, the destruction of the first holy temple, the Shekhinah went with them. The divine presence went with them, with the Jewish people into exile, meaning on an individual basis that the spark of the soul, right, there's that spark of the soul, the chachma of the neshama, the core essence of the soul, is in a state of Babylon, meaning we are acting like the Babylonians, meaning not as the Jewish soul being revealed, but as the Babylonians, and therefore the Shekhinah is in exile together with us. Now, what caused this exile? Why? What is it about me that the pintaliyid, the core of the soul, that inwardness of the heart is in exile? So this is because the innermost point of the heart, right, and is not engaged in holiness, but in the opposing force of holiness, the other side, sitra acher, negativity. In other words, we have what's called soiled garments that our thought, speech, and action are kind of tied down to mundane matters, worldly desires, and that's what Babylon represents. So what God has done, he's banished the divine spark of our soul, right, which is the personal Shekhinah that's within every Jewish soul, to this Babylon. In other words, to be in a place that's going to be naturally its tendency to mundane things. That's the reality. That's the human condition today. That the natural state is that our inner heart is connected our inner heart is connected to mundane things and not to godliness. Okay, we get that. Right? Now he gives a metaphor that this corresponds to the idea of the circumcision, bris milah, that it says that the foreskin that covers the covenant of the innermost point of the heart. And therefore, we're commanded that you have to excise the foreskin of your heart. Umaltim is arlus levavchem. In Deuteronomy. That's the idea of excision. That's the idea of circumcision. And what are we circumcising? Our heart. Now, of course, we understand the concept, and we'll get to in a moment, of circumcision, is a particular thing. But the Torah tells us that there's another kind of circumcision, our heart. So, what does that mean? What does it mean to circumcise the heart? It means we have to cut off something that is not in a healthy place, and that's the tshuva that we need to do. That will allow the divine spark of our soul that's in our heart to be revealed. Now it's concealed. So he explains in this metaphor, right? What is the metaphor over here? In circumcision, for those who are familiar with it, there's two parts to it. There's what we call milah and priya. Rina, can you just call my wife and tell her I'm teaching? Sorry. Can you just call my wife and tell her I'm in the middle of teaching? If I don't know. Okay. There are two stages, milah which is the cutting, and then priya, which is the uncovering. So, in the actual physical circumcision of the male organ, right, of a Jewish boy at 8 days, you remove there's two parts. There's the coarse part of the foreskin, and then there's a thin membrane. So the cutting is the thick coarseness of the foreskin, but there's still remaining a membrane that needs to be removed backwards. So what does that mean? So actually the law is that if you just remove the foreskin, but you didn't remove the membrane and the thin membrane, then you don't truly fulfill the mitzvah. You don't fulfill the mitzvah. So what does that mean in a metaphor? So physical, that's the law of the circumcision when it comes to the male organ. But this is a metaphor over here to understand the heart, that we also need to circumcise it. So it means in the heart, there's the external aspect of the heart and the innermost part of the heart. In other words, we can cut away the external aspects of the heart, but the innermost point of the heart can be still covered by a thin sackcloth of klipa, of negativity, right? That means still in a state of exile and captivity. Meaning that if you've done away with kind of very open and obvious negativity in us, there's still something deeper when we can dig deeper and find that there's still that membrane that's still covering, and it needs to be moved away in order to reveal the ultimate soul. So to remove the inner part, that's not so simple, the Alter Rebbe says. And that's a very difficult matter. Now, is to get deeper into my heart and to remove that negativity is not so easy. The obvious things, like in other words, the things that we have about our character that needs fixing, that's obvious. That's the external. Those things we're aware of. But then there's deeper things that we could be blinded, not aware of. That is a much more deeper element, that thin membrane, that is a difficult thing. On that, it says, interesting, that when Mashiach comes, it says, the verse says, also in Deuteronomy, Umal Hashem Elokecha Lebavcha, and God, the Lord your God, He will circumcise your heart to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, for the sake of your life. So what we're talking about over here is that can come to a place that you recognize, in other words, when we deal with our character and things that we are obvious that we need to fix in our lives, we're aware of them, we work on it, and that's the first part that we said, an awareness of the greatness of God that can bring you to a love of God. So there's an awareness of the things that I need to excise, to circumcise, to remove from my heart. If I'm an angry person, if I'm an impatient person, a judgmental person, all these kind of things are things in our capacity, right? But to come to a place that you can recognize that God is literally your whole life, right? In others, we can come to a love of God because there's an appreciation of God. But here we're talking something much greater than just an appreciation of God. That He constitutes my very life. Now, why is that different? Because it's not about a thing, right? I get things from God, and for that I can have an appreciation, I have an awareness and acknowledgement that I can come through my mind to understand and appreciate and thank God and connect to God. But life itself, we usually don't appreciate it because it's such a given. It is so, what's the word? It's essential. So life, so I appreciate living. We appreciate things of life. When we sometimes think maybe then we appreciate living. No, there's no other reality but to live, right? I mean, it's not a thing to live, right? It's kind of transcends. It's life itself. So we don't think about appreciating the breath of life that we have. So there's a love of God that He is my very life. Just like life is something essential. It's not a thing. It's everything. So here, God is everything. To touch that part, to get to that part in the soul, that it truly appreciates that. This is a love that only comes after that thin membrane, right, which is the inner part of the heart, has been removed. And therefore you can touch that innermost part that transcends awareness. It transcends knowledge. It's like we don't go around thinking, oh, I'm alive. Maybe sometimes we say that, but it's an awareness of it. It's just, this is beyond awareness. Just like our commitment to living is beyond awareness. It's not because I'm aware of how important it is to live, I live. No. Transcends that. That's what we're talking about. I hope I'm getting this clear. By the way, as a result, the Alter Rebbe says, therefore Mashiach will come when the Jewish people are in general caught unaware. Why? Because Mashiach is bringing us to a place that's beyond awareness, beyond what we can get to through our own minds, intelligence, through our own awareness that we can bring to our hearts. That's external. But the innermost of the heart is an expression of God excising the innermost of my part of my heart, that therefore Mashiach represents or comes unaware, because what He's bringing to us is a place that's beyond awareness, transcends awareness. Meaning, what does it mean it transcends awareness? It means that the connection we have is so essential that it's not my awareness that creates it. It just is. That God is my very life. That just is. And then the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, comes out of exile as a result. Now, so what we said is the ultimate circumcision of that heart. By the way, that happens to righteous people today. Real tzaddikim, real righteous people. They live on such an existence. And so it ultimately will happen to all of us. And in that sense, we become like really righteous people of today. However, the Alter Rebbe says, nevertheless, it's even possible to kind of liberate that personal spark, that Shekhinah in us, on a very temporary basis, and that is during a time of prayer. During the time of prayer, which is called Chaye Shah, which means a moment of life, because it's a moment where we can come to an appreciation, if that's the right word, or I maybe beyond appreciation, but we can come to that God is truly my life, and therefore, I can divest not only of my crude things in my life that are not real at that moment, but even the more um, subtle things about me. They are kind of back burner in the moment of prayer. We're capable of reaching this kind of connection where there's a sense that God is really my life. And that we can cleave with a fiery passion in our prayers in that moment. It's not with an awareness, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. No. If you're having the awareness, then that's not it. But it's a gift that's granted from heaven that we can be so connected to the radiant light of God during prayer. Because in that moment, even the inner part of my heart is open to the countenance, the light of God, that He is truly my life. All right. Whew. Heavy duty. Heavy duty stuff. So, I hope I explained it well. So, what's some take-homes? Some practical relevance that we can take from here. I mean, it speaks for itself, but let's unpack a little more. So, who's the real me? The real me is the inner part of the heart that is really hard to get to. So the real me, there's no facade. It's the true soul. And it expresses itself in being the real me is my spark, the Shekhinah, that is the makeup of my soul. So how does it express itself? That God is my true life. So what's interesting is, many people say, find yourself, do what's good for you, be yourself. So most of the times people are saying, be yourself is like, be what you want to be what you choose to be. Don't be who you are, right? Today, the idea of free choice has gone to such an extent that you could choose anything you want. You could choose even your gender. But that's the mistake. It's not what you're choosing that makes you who you are. That doesn't make you. You've got a spark of the divine soul in you. And that's who you are. So then you come to this point where that's the real me. That's real life. And if we're merit, that we can actually, sense in the time of prayer, as we mentioned here, that God is really, truly my life. Now, you're not choosing a path. You're not choosing a thing. I want to be this thing. I want to express myself this way. There's no awareness here. This is beyond awareness. This is ultimate true reality of who we are. This isn't captive. This is in prison. And it's deep down. But we have an awareness, at least. We have an understanding of this concept. And therefore, this is really what we want to kind of choose in life. So, second point that ties in, and all of this ties in, is that there are moments that the Alter Rebbe says we can connect to the real me, right? In prayer, as he says. But how are you connecting? It's not like I'm aware of how special I am and how special my connection is to God, right? No, this is beyond any awareness. It's being. It's just I am. And what am I? Divine soul that God is truly my life. It's hard to put into words, and I need to find better words. But it is it's just, you are. What are you? No self-awareness. There's no sense of, there's there's me trying to reach to being better. There's me trying to, connect to God. Me that's trying to fulfill my purpose. That is the external part of the heart. And all of that we have access to when we have an awareness, we have a knowledge and how to, to engage in that. But this is something way beyond. And that's why it's so difficult. And that's why it'll be in the times of Mashiach that we'll really have it. But what the Alter Rebbe is saying here is that we might have moments of this in prayer. And we're going to continue this thought tomorrow's class. We're not finished. That we can have access to this, that I am beyond a sense of awareness. I just am. And what am I? I'm a Jew. Connecting to God in prayer, and to a degree that He is my very existence, my very life. Not in a conscious way, not in a that I'm feeling it. Not feeling it. It's beyond feelings. It's beyond aware. If it's beyond awareness and it's beyond feelings, you just are. You just are. That's total in tune with the divine. That's what our Rebbe is. And that's going to be hard for us. And the third point is, that's actually what Mashiach is. Mashiach comes when we are sort of least expecting it, caught unaware. As the Talmud says, as Behesach Hadas, caught unaware, Mashiach comes. And the story with the Rebbe once in the early years, Chassidim were in the hallway in 770 discussing how is it going to look like when Mashiach comes, and the Rebbe just happened to walk through the door, and he just said, Punktazoi, just like this. There's many meanings in that, but simple is, just like this, totally unaware, totally not expecting it. Why does it have to be that way? Because the whole point of Mashiach is we're trying to bring us to a place that is beyond our awareness, beyond our knowledge, that of who and what I am in the core of my soul, that is expressed in the inwardness of my heart, that I am truly and really connected to the divine to such a degree that that's me, that's my life, my very being. So that's what Mashiach is. Just being, I am. No facade. Being real. Not being real the way the world says, I'm being real now because I've chosen, I grew up like, I was told that this is what I need to be because that's what I was told, that I need to be. Whatever. And I've chosen to be otherwise. That's not I am. That's not a beyond awareness core essence of expression. That's just a confused person who doesn't realize that God made you in a certain way, and just be who you are, a godly person. express that in a godly way. Whew. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts. I hope sometimes I feel I'm way too heavy. Please let me know if I'm too heavy. Jeffrey, give me just one brief moment before you share. I want to hear your, before I lose the feed here on Facebook. So give me a moment. Jane is asking, is it right to say that God is my life? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Eric, is Mashiach also in exile? Well, Mashiach is a Shekhinah, so in exile, divine presence, Mashiach in exile. In a sense, I guess you would say that too. Yeah. Okay. Any other two question marks before you ask? Michael, is it accurate to say that I am the spark in search of my source? Yeah. I mean, your soul is the spark, and you are seeking to connect that spark in you to Hashem, yes, or to reveal it. It is connected, but to reveal it. Okay, I think I might have missed somebody, but I don't see the question marks. Please put two question marks before you ask a question, so that way I can know for certain. Roslana, do that if you don't mind. Okay, Jeff, please share with us.
So I had a lot of deep sighs listening to you today. And it was really amazing to hear this detail of circumcision that I'm sure that 99.9% of the people don't know what you described.
Right.
and of course it's so amazing how perfectly and deeply it fits in here. So kudos to those who wrote this and the Alter Rebbe to put it together. So that was one really amazing thing. I wanted to try to express that, and it's of course very hard to, that in deep prayer, meditation, or these times that we're talking about it, I think all of us kind of maybe feel that we can almost glimpse or reach, like almost seeing this most deep real self. I mean, we can't, and maybe it's closed, but we can't. But I feel there's sometimes that maybe that all of us, it's like wait a second, hold it, oh, it's gone, kind of thing. And I think that so many people, everybody, really everyone, tries these other, I guess, this other clothing on to try to say, what, this will help me get there. But and maybe some of it is good because it helps the person to clarify things. I don't know, but I hear what you're saying, that none of that is really going to kind of get you there, and I don't know how to get there, but maybe none of us do, but I just observed that. And the one other small thing I wanted to say is that the part about Deuteronomy, love your Lord, all your God, love your God, all the heart, soul, and mind. That's like right after the Shema, the part of the Ve'ahavta, and I'm never going to read that again. I always read it in a very rote way. It's the first prayer to learn, and it's all your heart, all your soul, and all your might is the way I learned it. And I think I maybe have really is meant to, what a real understanding of that is.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you. Very nice. Yeah. So, for me, a message over here is like sometimes we just do something really extraordinary, and when we're unaware of how extraordinary it is, that's the beauty of it. When we become aware, the self-awareness is already kind of takes away of its purity. And that's not a simple thing. What do you mean? You did something extraordinary and you're not aware of how extraordinary it is. Shouldn't you be? Yes and no. It should be a place that you just being. You're not being extraordinary. You're just being. You're just being the Jew that you need to be. You're just being the person you need to be. Not out of, not trying to prove anything. Forget even proving to anybody else, even proving to yourself. This is so, in a way, counterintuitive, but in a way, when we think about it, it's so real. And so, sometimes you see somebody that does something and they did it out of such a purity, even unaware of how magnificent and beautiful it was. That's like, that's like touching a core of coming from a very deep place within us. There's a beautiful story he told, the Arizal his yahrzeit was just this past week, and he lived in Tzfat in the 16th century, and in the synagogue, the Beis Midrash where they were, so he was the Kabbalist. The rabbi was Rabbi Yosef Cairo, who's the author of the Code of Jewish Law, Shulchan Aruch, and the Chazan was the Lechadoidi. Forget his first name, Yosef El-Kabaz, I think it was, if I remember. And the Darshan was the Ashlich, the Al-Shich, rather, the Al-Shich, Moshe Al-Shich. He was a great orator and a great, holy individual. So he's speaking about Avram Avinu, Abraham. He was speaking about, and all of a sudden he got so into what he was speaking about, and very animated, and all of a sudden the Arizal walks out in the middle of him speaking. So, the Arizal walking out in the middle of him speaking, he was a little, I must have done something, So he asked him, what did he do? So, when you speak about Avram Avinu, you know who came? Avram Avinu. His neshama came. I mean, the Al-Shich was a holy individual. However, in the middle of your speaking about him, you got a little sense of self. You got a little kind of awareness of self. And Avram Avinu walked out. Well, he walked out, so I walked out. This is a very, whoa, what does that mean? I mean, this is holy people. We're talking about, there's a holy foursome over here. Meaning the idea of self-awareness, we're not just being. We're being based on a self-awareness. And that's where, therefore we become a being based on others and even what we have an agenda and a desire for, rather than being just real. Beyond self-awareness. Just being connected to the divine. I hope I brought that out okay, because it's not easy. Idea. Eliana, please share.
Thank you. Couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One, are the experiences that we have, like the external experiences that we have through life, are those there and I'm coming at this because the last 3 weeks have been really hard coming through, the last 3 weeks. And are they there to help remove that membrane, or that thin membrane around the heart? Context, and this maybe is too much information, but everybody knows my story that knows me. My marriage of 17 years was very abusive, and I thought I worked through a lot of that, but then here while I'm in this hotel traveling, I was pushed into my hotel room and had to fight this guy off, much like I had to always fight my husband off. And I'm trying to balance those. Why did this happen right at the beginning of the 3 weeks, and kind of all the emotions that are around that, and wondering what was the purpose of that. And those type of events in life, are those there to help remove that thin membrane to find your real self?
Very good question. So I would suggest that those things are really happening to remove the coarseness of our character and soul, not the the external, rather than the deeper parts. The deeper parts are much more subtle, and we probably still have things on the external part of the heart that in our thought, speech, and action that needs to be circumcised, right? Needs to be removed. So I would suggest that that could more likely be. I mean, I'm not a prophet that knows this, but I would suggest that more likely it's an experience to help us with that, as opposed to the inner, more deeper part. But it could be, and external. By the way, there's layers. There's layers of that are much more, profound, deeper, that is about behavior as opposed to kind of core. Does that make sense?
Yes, and thank you for answering that. That helps a lot. And then my other question is, just from people that I've talked to that that use meditation, and some people that use external factors like mushrooms or something, that say that they've reached their inner self. Are they truly reaching an inner portion of themselves, or is it still external?
A friend of mine once told me that a exotic dancer used to told them that when I do my exotic dancing, I feel the divine, right? I feel divine connection. So he says, well, when Moses felt divine connection, what came from that was the Ten Commandments. When you feel your divine connection, what comes out of that exactly? So someone who's using, first of all, something external to induce something that itself is questionable, and what's coming out of it? That what God is my entire life, and therefore I'm dedicating myself to doing another mitzvah and to do more mitzvahs. Is that what's coming out? Or is coming out is other undesirable things? So I think that's very much suspect. Very much suspect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Michael, just give me one moment before I lose the feed here. Anna, is self-awareness somehow an idolatry? Listen, we are self-aware, but in a sense it is the ultimate, an idolatry in a sense. You're right. Well, what does it mean, self-aware? Well, self-aware means that and we're not going to get beyond this, and that's why this inner part is going to be so hard, and that's why it's in the times of Mashiach it's going to become real for us, because I'm aware that it's God, but I'm aware that it's me too, and I think about me, right? I think about me. I think about the things that I need, and things that I want, and the things I want to achieve, and things that as I think I told the story, was it yesterday or just recently? When I was once needed something to teach, and I went over to the Rabbi in the synagogue, and I said to him, in Yiddish, I said to him, "Ich darf haben dem for a shir. I need this for a class. I need this." So he looks at me, older chassid, says, "Wer bist du? Ich darf. Who are you?" that I need. What do you mean I need? So the royal I, capital I in English, right? I need. Hasidim of old never said the word I. No, how about when they needed something? So they said mindarf. In Yiddish means it's needed. It's needed, or like we need it, right? But not I need. So, the ultimate idolatry is that me, right? And that's what where does that express itself? When we get angry, as the sages say, that when a person gets angry, that's a very big capital I, huge capital I, that is, truly idolatry. True self-awareness. Anger is true self-awareness. Not true self-awareness. It's a self-awareness, not a true self-awareness. It's a corrupted one, but it's a self-awareness, a very strong self-awareness. That I wanted this and you didn't do that, but I wanted, and I'm really angry. That's really aware. So that's the extreme of self-awareness, right? Is that it expresses itself in anger. So the less I'm aware, give you a perfect example. Yesterday, sitting on a low stool, it wasn't good, so great for my back. I was aware of my back. You know why? Because I had some pain. I stood up more because it was difficult to sit on a low stool on Tisha B'Av. But I was aware. My wife had a headache. She was self-aware of. So being aware of self, the pains that we have, well, is not a good sign of our health. When we are so self-aware of self, right? I need, I want, I'm angry. That's true self-awareness. I mean, not true. It's not true self-awareness. It's a very emphatic self-awareness, which is, idolatry. So, absolutely, Anna. In that sense, and that's why it's the thin membrane, right, from the circumcision. It's a very subtle thing, just like the story with the Alshich that was self-aware of the brilliance of what he was saying. Avraham Avinu walked out. The Arizal walked out. Okay, they're very, very holy people, so, that's on their level. So, that made sense. On our level, we shouldn't walk out on somebody because of that. Right? Don't do that. But yes, Anna, that's very correct. In a very subtle way, that's what it is. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I think that helped. And in your question, in my explanation, I hope that helped everybody. I think it brought it to a different level of understanding now of this idea of self-awareness. Michael, please share.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom.
Rabbi, you kind of anticipated my question. It was regarding why are we self-aware and what does self-awareness mean? Because we know that not every creature out there is self-aware. Only humans are.
Exactly.
And I was wondering where that comes from.
Excellent question. So it's because of self-awareness, that's where we have the choice, right? Animals don't, as you mentioned, Michael, animals and everything else in creation doesn't have self-awareness. They're not aware, this is what I'm thinking now. Is this a good thought, bad thought? Animals aren't thinking, is this a good thought or a bad thought? They're not thinking, is this a good thought, bad thought? They whatever they're thinking. That's what they are, right? They're being true to themselves, well, to the nature of being animalistic, because they have no choice but to be what they are. Interesting, in 5,000 years, the animal kingdom hasn't improved, hasn't progressed. A lion is still a lion. A lion didn't, I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to become a pussycat. I'm going to be sweet. The lion hasn't progressed in any way. Humans, we have a capacity. Where does that come from? Self-awareness is the place of choice. I'm thinking this. Should I be thinking this thought? Is this a good thought, a bad thought? So there is the place of choice as a result of that. What we're talking about over here is something far and above beyond that. This is not freedom to choose. This is actually freedom from choice. This is true freedom to really be who you really are ultimately, is a divine soul, that there's no other reality but God, and therefore you are just sensing He is your life. So the playing field that we're talking about now is beyond that. That once you've worked on the choices in life, which is the external aspect, that through our awareness of mind can bring us to choose properly and therefore feed our heart in choosing right from wrong, right? Once we've developed that, then this next level that's gifted from above, as we're explaining, and that we will all get gifted in times of Mashiach, but it's gifted from above, and we can have some inkling of it in prayer, is beyond that choice. You're now, it's not your choosing, because in self-awareness is where the choice is taking place. So yes, we need to be aware that we have self-awareness, that we can choose, but on this very refined level, even that becomes, a form of, for a lofty soul, that's a form of, I don't know, I guess idolatry. Yeah, that there's me choosing. A higher level is there is no other reality. But again, that's a very high level. Thank you for that, Michael. Very, very good. That brought more clarification to this idea.
Thank you, Rabbi. I also had another question, but it's really not related. It's more of a question I encountered in other rooms, and I didn't know how to answer. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to put in Clubhouse. I think I'd rather shoot you a message on Instagram.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay. So Roslana is asking why the teachings are mystical. Religion is not a secret. Mystical doesn't mean well, it means secrets being revealed. So the mystical teachings are these secrets that the Alter Rebbe revealed to us, right? Hey, that's what we're learning now. We are learning the mystical or Chabad Hasidic teachings that are of a mystical nature, and they're being revealed to us. So the secrets are out. And what's the secret? The secret is that we have a divine connection, that we could just be. So you know how this maybe can express itself. Now as where the discussion continues and it develops the idea. You prayed today. Why? Well, for the Jew, on this level, on sort of like this beyond awareness, it's not because, prayer is like so valuable. Prayer is such a divine connection, and brings you to the top of the mountain, and so all those things are great things, and we should have that. We should have that awareness, and it's so true. It's so true. But on a deeper level, you know what? I'm a Jew, and that's what a Jew does. A Jew prays, puts on their tefillin, does this mitzvah, does that. In a sense, that's sort of like beyond awareness. Not that you don't have the awareness. At the same time, you have the awareness of the majesty of prayer, the majesty of a mitzvah. You get it. You're aware of it, 100%. But ultimately, why? Hey, I'm a Jew. And this is what a Jew does. Why? Hey, that's the Jewish thing. So it's not coming from like this spiritual lofty awareness. It's just coming out of a simplicity that this is what I am. I'm a Jew. This is what a Jew does. Why? Because that's what a Jew does. So in a sense, you might say, oh, well, you're simple-minded. First of all, it doesn't. Again, together with that, you have the full awareness of the value and the importance and so on. You have that self-awareness. But here, this is even beyond self-awareness. It's not I'm aware of the value and that no, just a very simplicity of beyond awareness in a sense. That's what I am. The mitzvah is an expression of me. I'm the mitzvah is me. I'm a Jew, so I do it. That's maybe a deeper, way that we can kind of personalize it. Beyond that's what I am, period. That's what I am. And you're so comfortable with that, so firm with that, so simple with that. That is a purity. Again, not denying and not appreciating the great understanding and the value of prayer or tefillin or Shabbos and so on, and you understand all of that, but in the end, there's something more simple and sublime in the sense that it's beyond all that. I think that actually brings it all home now in a very simple way. I hope that resonates, because I think that actually kind of now I'm appreciating getting it better now myself as we converse.
Thank you, Rabbi. If I can say something about what you said, it was all so beautiful because there are many layers. There's many layers to everything that you've said, but when you get into the deepest layers and recesses of the heart, it's simple truth, and it's beyond anything. It's just being.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you. Batya, I think you wanted to share something.
Yes, I did. This class is very, 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 very profound. This today is very profound. It's just that we don't, most times I think, aren't completely self-aware. We're self-aware in the sense that, like what you were saying, with that we know that we want this or we want that, or our animal soul wants what it wants or what have you. But I don't think that on a conscious level all the time we're aware of it. And so being, trying to learn and grasp and understand and be more self-aware in the sense that being aware that we're being too self-aware, if you don't get what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
There has to be a balance with that, because it could go, there's self-awareness with knowing, with doing mitzvahs and doing good things and so forth, but having self-awareness when it's on the opposite end is, which is idolatry, is like, what's the practical methods of being able to work through those things and to be able to realize when you're in that, right when you're in that moment, I guess.
All right. So listen, we're going to be caught that. So the self-awareness that we have a choice, that's a good thing. The self-awareness of like how, wow, this is amazing. Like this, or the feeling of you're being, in a sense, it's great that we have that kind of feeling of amazing. In a sense, though, that's the self-awareness. But it's a tricky thing. Let's leave the self-awareness now to the awareness that we need to work on. That is something that we are capable of awareness of my needs, my wants, my desires, and that they need to be fulfilled, and that those are things of neediness that is not what the focus of our self-awareness should be. The self-awareness should only be in a place of choice, that I'm aware of choice. That's important, because sometimes we live so much on autopilot that we lose the choice. So there's that self-awareness that's important, that I have a choice. But the self-awareness that I'm aware that my back is hurting, well, that's an unhealthy self-awareness, unhealthy, of being self-aware of ich, the I, the capital I. So instead, what we need to replace that is with an awareness that I should, be good, be useful for someone else, do something good for another. That's a good self-awareness of let me be useful for another, let me do for another. And this higher level that we're speaking about, that God is, that's a even more sublime of, as we explain, the simple idea of that, hey, I'm a Jew, this is what I am, period. Not because of my, yeah. Yes.
Just want to quickly check something.
Sure.
So it's okay that it could take me a lifetime to have that level of awareness, right?
Oh, I think it's going to take all of us a lifetime. It's going to take me a lifetime.
Yeah, that's not like an easy thing, Jeffrey. You're oriented to your needs because you're human. You gotta live. But to be able to live on a transcendent and higher awareness of more than humanity, of your peace of God, that takes a long time, perhaps forever, like Rabbi said, but it's like the most beautiful thing to concentrate on. That's what prayer and meditation does, at least for me.
It's a lifetime process. It's a journey with working on it, and we shouldn't be complacent in it. We should be going from one level to the next and the journey of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was being facetious about that. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, I wasn't too slow.
No, you know what? Slow we are, because this is very deep and profound, and we are going to make very small gains in this area, but it's not about getting somewhere. It's about being on that journey and that path. So if we realize the truth of it, and that's what's important, I think, is if we recognize the truth of this, and then just little by little we apply this in our lives, we're going to see a difference in who we are. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you. Davida is asking, what happens on the flip side of this when someone does a sin without thinking about it? So it just means it's not really, that's means that they need to then they didn't exercise self-awareness and use their choice, right? That's what happens when we do sin, is that we're not aware of choice. That's what happens usually. So we need to work on that. Michael, so as with the computer, we need to work on our connection. Yes, absolutely. A reminder, folks, those who are working on their Tanya journal, it's working amazingly. More are going out. So if you're interested, please go to TanyaRabbi.com for the minimal charge of the printing of it and the sending of it out. You get for 4 months a guide to help you in the journey, and to make notes, and to live with the teachings, not just be inspired with it and let it, and leave it there, even though I'm sure you don't, but, nonetheless. A reminder today, 12:45, learning Rambam, finishing up the book of Ahava today and tomorrow. And everybody is welcome to come and join us. All right, I think my time is up. I want to thank everybody for helping out as always. Davida on Facebook, Vachi Vilna, thank you, and everybody else. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadeshim, Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all.